Vasanubhye Vicha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmad Yasha Yato Nivayad Itaratas Charte Suavigya Swarat. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha. Tejo Varimidam Yata Vinimaya Yatra Trisargo Misha. Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva. O all-pervading personality of Godhead. For my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Pujita Kaitrabotra Paramo Nirmatsanam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivedam Tapa Trayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va Purer Ishwaraha Sadyohidi Avarudyate Tra Krite Bihi Sususabhistakshana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam sukumukad amrita dravya samyatam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. even though its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantaksto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhitsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse number 14. Kanchit kalam atavatsit satkrito devavat sukham prarthur jestasya shreyas krit sarvesam sukham avahan. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus Mahatma Vidura, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother, and in this way bring happiness to all the others. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Saintly persons like Vidura must be treated as well as a denizen of heaven. In those days, denizens of heavenly planets used to visit homes like that of Maharaj Yudhisthira, and sometimes persons like Arjuna and others used to visit higher planets. Narada is a spaceman who can travel unrestrictedly, not only within the material universes, but also in the spiritual universes. Even Narada used to visit the palace of Maharaj Yudhisthira, and what to speak of other celestial demigods. It is only the spiritual culture of the people concerned that makes interplanetary travel possible. Even in the present body, Maharaj Yudhisthira, therefore, received Vidura in the manner of reception offered to the demigods. Mahatma Vidura had already adopted the renounced order of life, and therefore he did not return to his paternal palace to enjoy some material comforts. He accepted out of his own mercy what was offered to him by Maharaj Yudhisthira, but the purpose of living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother, Dhritarashtra, who was too much materially attached. Dhritarashtra lost all his state and descendants in the fight with Maharaj Yudhisthira. And still, due to his sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaj Yudhisthira. On the part of Maharaj Yudhisthira, it was quite in order to maintain his uncle in a befitting way, but acceptance of such magnanimous hospitality by Dhritarashtra was not at all desirable. He accepted it because he thought that there was no alternative. Vidura particularly came to enlighten Dhritarashtra and to give him a lift to the higher status of spiritual cognition. It is the duty of enlightened souls to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidura came for that reason. But talks of spiritual enlightenment are so refreshing that while instructing Dhritarashtra, Vidura attracted the attention of all the members of the family, and all of them took pleasure in hearing him patiently. This is the way of spiritual realization. The message should be heard attentively. If spoken by a realized soul, it will act on the dormant heart of the conditioned soul, and by continuously hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self-realization. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So there's a saying in the language that I speak, and that is it says, if you have a sweet tongue, meaning it's not that you like to eat sweets, but you speak nicely, then saintly persons will come, or then good persons will come to hear you. And if you have a nasty tongue, then you'll chase away saintly people. So, a person is judged not so much by how they look or how they dress, although that has some meaning, but how they speak. Speech is a very important factor of what's in the consciousness of a person. And the examples they use and the stories that they tell and things like that determine to a large factor what's in the mind of that person and how they perceive the world. And it says in the Bhagavad Gita, that one can judge a person by their speech. Let me find that verse. It's in the 2nd chapter. It says, ECH. Let's see it. Okay, anyway, speech is the, let's say, the mirror of the mind. And when people speak only about Krishna, and as it says, the austerity of speech depends on the following. Anudvegam karam vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyaya vyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literatures. Now in the purport, Prabhupada says that one should, and this is 17th chapter, 15th verse. And in the purport it says that one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students, but such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students. This is a very important point. That's why there's a saying in the Bible, don't throw your pearls to the feet of swine, pigs. They won't respect them. So, one should not speak to those who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. The process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. So, it's very important. And in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 54th verse, Arjuna uvaja stita pragyasya bhase samadhista shikeshava stita di kim prabhaseta kim asita vajeta kim. So this verse says, Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? And what is his language? And how does he sit? And how does he walk?" Okay? So, if something looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and talks like a duck, what is it? It's a duck, right? So, you recognize someone by the way, as it says here, how does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? So Prabhupada says that most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks, for speech is the most important quality of any man. There it is. And certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of a Krishna-conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters related to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow, as stated below. So we see here that speech is the most important quality by which you can judge a person. There are other criterions also, definitely, but speech is very important. Now, that's why we see here that to treat a person nicely, one must speak speak truthfully, beneficially, gently, and pleasingly, especially if it's a saintly person. But we should be like that with everyone. And this idea of interplanetary travel, well, it was a common thing before. When there were saintly kings on the earth, the demigods would come to the earth on a regular basis. If you go to the Radharaman temple in Vrindavan, whenever they have these elaborate yagyas, they set out plates with prasadam. And if you go in there, you'll see there's a whole bunch of plates with prasadam where there's nobody sitting. And you wonder, why do they set those plates? Those are for the demigods who they invite to come. See? So previously, the demigods were always offered Mahaprasadam. Therefore, they would come. But if there's no Mahaprasadam for the demigods, then they don't come. Right? So they only come because of saintly persons on the earth, like Maharaj Yudhisthira. And it says, and sometimes persons like Arjuna and others used to visit higher planets. Narada is a spaceman who can travel unrestrictedly, not only within the material universes, but also in the spiritual universes. Even Narada used to visit the palace of Maharaj Yudhisthira. And what to speak of other celestial demigods? It is only the spiritual culture of the people concerned that makes interplanetary travel possible, even in the present body. So, what is he talking about? He's talking about spiritual culture. Culture is how you do things, how you speak, how you walk, and so forth. How you eat, how you do things, everything that you do, there's a spiritual, cultural way of doing it. And that's what Prabhupada is teaching us through his instructions, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, through the examples of pure devotees like Prabhupada and Narada Muni and Maharaj Yudhisthira, so forth, and Arjuna. So, Maharaj Yudhisthira therefore received Vidura in a manner of reception offered to the demigods. So there's a saying also in Hindi, I forget one part of it, Atiti Deva something. In other words, Atiti Deva Bhava, yeah. That is, you should receive a guest as if it's a demigod, with respect. Atiti Deva Bhava, yeah. Bhava or Bhavo? Bhava, yeah. Atiti Deva Bhava, yeah. So, Vidura had already accepted the renounced order of life. So, if he came back to his paternal dwelling, where his family was living, it was not to enjoy the family. It's just like every year, sometimes at Diwali or Ram Navami or something like that, there are family reunions in India, right? People fly in from Hong Kong, from the United States, from England, and they have a family reunion, and everyone's happy to see each other, and there's hugs, and they give each other coronavirus and so forth. But it's to enjoy. It's not exactly to be elevated spiritually. And everyone feels happy, and then they eat, they make special food, and they do this and do that. Like, for example, when relatives come to see their children or their relatives in Seattle who are devotees, all of a sudden the devotees are very busy taking them to the Space Needle and to Mount Rainier and different places like that. And just talking mundane stuff the whole time, you see. So that's going to see your relatives for a sense gratification. But that was not Vidura's purpose. He did not go to his paternal palace to enjoy some material comforts. He accepted out of his own mercy what was offered to him by Maharaj Yudhisthira. But the purpose of living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother. So Dhritarashtra was in a pitiable situation. First of all, he conspired and intrigued most of the time to kill the Pandavas. And here the Pandavas, they're successful. They defeat all the sons of Dhritarashtra, and they're all killed. And still, Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari are accepting the hospitality and the respect of the Pandavas. Now, that is an incredible, let's say, example of spiritual culture. Just like Rama was banished because of his stepmother and the way she was influenced by Kaikeyi. But yet, when the residents of Ayodhya went to see Rama and Sita in the forest, I think it was Chitrakoot. They came all the way from Ayodhya there with the whole army led by Bharat. Rama and Sita both forgave. What was the name of the mother? Not Kaikeyi, right? Wasn't it Kaikeyi? Yeah. Yeah, they forgave her. It's unbelievable. They're living in the forest. They have no material comforts. Sita Devi is a princess, or she never always lived in a palace, and now she is living in a forest, and wild animals and demons and different things like that. They forgave the mother. Unbelievable how they, if you read that in the Ramayana, you're like amazed. How could they do this? So, there's a spiritual culture. And just like there's once a sadhu who was meditating on the bank of the Ganges, and he was sitting under a tree, but it was on the bank of the Ganges. And while he was meditating, one scorpion went out on the branch of the tree that was over the river and fell into the river. And the sadhu noticed it. And he said, "Oh my God, this poor living entity can die." So he went into the water and picked up or saved the life of the scorpion. And on the way back to the shoreline, the scorpion bit him. And then he threw the scorpion onto the land. And the scorpion again went up on the tree, went out on the branch, again fell into the river. Again the sadhu went and saved him. Again the scorpion bit him. And someone saw this. And they said, "Sadhuji, what is this? Twice you saved the life of the scorpion, and twice he bit you." And sadhu said, "Yes." He said, "The nature of the scorpion is to bite, and the nature of the sadhu is to be merciful." He said, "He cannot change his nature, I cannot change my nature." You see? So, this is an example of spiritual culture. Whereas in the Bible it says, an eye for an eye and an ear for an ear. In other words, if someone takes out your eye, you must take out their eye. If someone cuts off your ear, you must cut off their ear. You see. Whereas, actually Jesus showed, that's in the Old Testament, but Jesus showed that this law of an eye for an eye, an ear for an ear, is not on the highest level of spiritual life. It's on a lower level. Whereas the pure devotee, the nature of the pure devotee, just like that sadhu, is to always be merciful. And the person like a kshatriya, or a person who's an administrator or director or something, sometimes they have to be hard. They can't be so forgiving. However, the pure devotee is full of mercy. It's an ocean of mercy. So, does that mean that a pure devotee is a fool? No. But a devotee is always being merciful, just like Vidura. He didn't say, "Oh, the hell with my brother. Look at all the nonsense that he did. I'm not going to have anything to do with him." No. He went because he saw that his brother was in a pitiable, very unfortunate situation, being protected by the Pandavas, who he tried to kill. So he went and talked to him and associated with him and tried to explain to him that you can't stay in this situation. You're trying to live comfortably. No, you're at the end of your life. You should go into the forest, into the Vanaprastha, and prepare yourself for death. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So, this Dhritarashtra was he was accepting the hospitality of the Pandavas, Prabhupada says, due to his sense of helplessness. Now see, that is called Maya. You say, what? But the man's blind, he's helpless. No. No one is really helpless in this world. They are only ignorant of Krishna. When you're ignorant of Krishna, then you're helpless sometimes. But when you're conscious of Krishna, you never feel helpless. You feel humble. You feel dependent on the mercy of the Lord, but you never are helpless. You know that the Lord exists, and He's the supreme controller of everything, and He's the supreme proprietor. He's in your heart, and you always rely on the mercy and the good nature of the Lord. This is a certain point that is emphasized by Prabhupada. Devotee always depends on the what is it called? One second. It's called goodwill of the Lord. So this is explained in the 3rd chapter, 30th verse, where it says, that Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. So, what does this mean, the goodwill of the Supreme Lord? Well, it's a big subject. In the 2nd chapter, 45th verse, it says, one has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. You see. And then also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, 24, 1st canto, 9th chapter, 24th verse. It says, a pure devotee is never very anxious to go back to the kingdom of God. He entirely depends on the goodwill of the Lord. He is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord regardless, meaning regardless whether he's in heaven or hell, or a spiritual world, or in the material world. Bhismadev wanted this much only, that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord, and that he pass away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. So, this goodwill of the Lord is something very important that we should depend on and know that the Lord is actually good. He's not evil. He doesn't want his devotee or anybody to suffer unnecessarily. In fact, suffering is unnecessary. This is explained also Anarthapasaman Sakshat. This suffering is due to ignorance. It is not the nature of the living entity to suffer. The nature of the living entity is Anandamaya Vyasat, full of transcendental bliss. Anarthapasamam, let me look that verse up. Anarthapasamam Sakshat. These are index of Sanskrit verses. Yeah. This is the 7th chapter, 16th verse, where Krishna says, Canto 1, chapter 7, verse number 16. No. Anyway, it says that Anarthapasamam Sakshat, that the suffering is unnecessary. It's due to ignorance. 7:6. I'm sorry, 6th verse. Yeah. And it says, Anarthapasamam Sakshat Bhakti Yoga Mahoksaje Lokaisya Janato Vidvams Chakre Satvata Samitam. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him. In other words, they're not part of his nature. It's something outside of the nature of the human being, of the spirit soul, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. So suffering is not obligatory. It's not part of the nature of a human being. The nature of the human being is being full of bliss and knowledge and eternity. But due to ignorance, due to being conditioned by the modes of material nature, due to bad association, one begins to suffer. So this is, Prabhupada says here, simply yasyam vai shruyamanayam Krishne parama purushe bhaktir utpadyate pumsa sokamoha bayapaha. Simply by giving oral reception. Oral reception is not O-R-A-L, it's A-U-R-A-L. There's a difference. You pronounce the words the same. But O-R-A-L means speaking, and A-U-R-A-L means hearing. So here it says, simply by giving A-U-R-A-L, oral reception, meaning listening, to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. There you are. All this suffering is unnecessary if you're regularly hearing. And if you're not regularly hearing, you will be subjected to suffering out of ignorance. The nectar is there in the pastimes of the Lord. There's no nectar in the news. There's no nectar in the corporate culture. There's no nectar there. It's all anxiety, right? So, if you want the nectar, if you want to be relieved of all suffering, then you must give oral reception to hearing about Krishna. And Prabhupada says there are various senses of which the ear is the most effective. This sense works even when a man is deep asleep. One can protect himself from the hands of an enemy while awake, but while asleep, one is protected by the ear only. The importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from 3 material pangs. What are they? Lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So, there are many points in this purport. I don't know if we can cover them all now, but you can see how whenever Prabhupada writes something, it's full of meaning. You can write a book on each purport. That's how deep it is. Right? Okay, All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.